Good morning, sir. Um, I'll be reporting about internationalization and globalization, the distinction between the two, how international should be pursued by higher education, why there is a need to undergo the process, and what are the needed resources to institutionalize globalization. Okay, globalization and internationalization are interrelated but do not uh, mean the same. The globalization is the context of economic and academic trends that are part of the reality of the 21st century, while the internationalization includes the policy and practices undertaken by academic system and institutions to cope up with the global academic environment. One of the American authors, Philip Altbach, said, internationalization is often confused with globalization. He defined globalization as economic, political, and societal forces pushing 21st century higher education towards greater international involvement. The, the results of globalization include the integration of research, the use of English as the lingua franca for scientific communication, the growing international labor market for scholars, the use of information technology. It facilitates communication, permits efficient storage, selection, and dissemination of knowledge, and all providers to offer academic programs. An explanation of globalization, arguing that internationalization is both a response to and a contributing factor facilitating globalization. This was illustrated with examples from two studies exploring globalization and internationalization in higher education settings, like the yin and yang forces in ancient Chinese philosophy. Internationalization and globalization work together to transform the self-understanding and organizational activities of both research universities and community colleges. Um, Grounded in revolution in transportation and communication technologies, globalization and internationalization operates together to create a global interdependence in economics, politics, and culture. In addition, globalization tends to concrete wealth, knowledge, and power, while the international academic mobility similarly favors well-developed education program. Globalization, higher education, is the flow of dominant technology and knowledge across borders, while internationalization, higher education, is one of the ways a country respond to the impact of globalization, yet at the same time respect the individuality of the nation. And another article that I have read, written by Dr. Rodora Avanza of University of the Philippines. She said, internationalization is a university response to globalization, which is the strong and growing interdependence of countries, economics, and cultures. She added that it provides the opportunity for strengthening academic resources while retaining distinct identity in the fast changing world. It is therefore essential for University of the Philippines and other higher educational institutions to pursue internationalization given the rapid changes in the social, political, economic, and cultural landscapes and the desire of institutions always to be at the forefront of teaching, research, and extensions. It is also vigorously and aggressively being undertaken by universities in developed and developing countries, including those which were not as open before. The most internationalized nations are those nationalistic ones. The next is um, how it should be pursued and why. So, um, globalization represents the international system that is shaping most societies today. It is a process that is supercharging the interaction and integration of cultures, politics, business, and intellectual elements around the world. And as Dr. Prasad Swebka characterizes globalizations as a process to provide greater mobility for the movement of people, goods, services across borders for benefit of mankind. This accessibility and convergence among nationalities constitute a perspective for internationalization. So meaning the internationalization is the one who operates the globalization as it is. So for this, the ASEAN Economic Cooperation 2015 and Integration 2020 aims to form an ASEAN Economic Community, which is the AEC, which is the transformation of 10 countries of ASEAN into a single market and production base for the free flow of goods, services, investments, capital, and skilled labor. The ASEAN Economic Community is further characterized as a highly competitive region of equitable economic development and a region fully integrated into the global economy. And under the EO 285 authorizes higher education institution to admit foreign students and graduates from Philippine colleges and universities. These are schools with programs accredited by Federation of Accrediting Agencies of the Philippines, FAAP. Higher education institution that have programs that Commission on Higher Education has declared a center of excellence and a center of development. The schools allowed by the Bureau of Immigration, including the standard of training, certification, and watch keeping for seafarers. In, in, in accordance with the pertinent provisions of RA 7722, otherwise known as the Higher Education Act of 1994, RA 8292, otherwise known as the Higher Education Modernization Act of 1997, and for purpose of promoting mobility of students among higher education institutions through the ASEAN International Mobility for Students, which is the AIMS program. The Commission on Higher Education adopted and promulgated CHED Memorandum Order CMO number 7 Service of 2014, the guidelines for participation of selected education institutions in the ASEAN International Mobility for Students program. The Commission on Higher Education is responsible for formulating and implementing plans and policies, improvement of Philippine higher education system. It is within the mandate of CHED to oversee and guide the higher education institution on participating in the international process with the goal of improving the quality of education, developing human resources, and establishing a Filipino knowledge-based society. In CHED Memorandum Order Number 33, Series of 2013, Policy Guidelines on University Mobility in Asia and the Pacific, University Credit Transfer Scheme, it recognized the development brought about by the internationalization of Philippine higher education in response to globalization and liberalization of trade in goods and services worldwide, with expanded opportunities for students' mobility and cross-border employability. UMAP uh, provides opportunities for exchange, joint programs, and research consortia between and among participating universities. So that's the end of my report. Thank you.